Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road. It's just about finally stopped raining, which is good news. Norwich City, but it wasn't raining goals, sadly. That was, there we go, there's a boom. There we go, that's a good way to start. It's finished here at Norwich City 0, Preston North End 0 at Carrow Road. The start of what is a really big week for Norwich City, obviously starting with this game today, Sheffield Wednesday in midweek, and then obviously concluded with the small matter of an East Anglian derby at Portman Road next week, which is really looming large now on Norwich City. This was, I'll tell you what, I'll start with this. If you, like me, we're here at Carrow today and we're also here for QPR and you've endured both of those 90 minutes, and I use the word endured purposely, then you deserve some kind of medal, because in terms of entertainment value and in terms of excitement and riveting, entertaining football, there's not been a lot of it. But this wasn't all bad. I think that's fair to say as well. It's not a great result. I feel it's a real opportunity missed for Norwich City today. I kind of felt coming into these two games, having done what they did at Bristol City, this felt like a real opportunity to try and build on what they've done, and to in front of a home crowd as well. The form at Carrow Road of late has been sketchy. I think it's 4 points out of a possible 15 now after this game. And they had two home games that I felt very winnable. Preston before today haven't been in very good form at all. They've been kind of posing numbers of a relegation side, to be completely honest. Recently, they really struggle in terms of attacking. I think we saw a lot of that today. And they've been conceding goals too readily. And that, I think, is probably why, or behind what Ryan Lowe tried to do today, which was set up in a 5-4-1, be quite or 5-3-1-1 really, and try and be quite compact and try and get them up, sort of up in a fairly attritional way. But in a sense, it was all about the block and the defensive behaviours of what they were trying to do. And in terms of their game plan, when they walked off the coach here at Carrow Road this afternoon, they wanted a point, and they've left with a point. So I think they will be the more pleased of the two sides out of this. I've stood here for a little while and spoken about control and a lack of. I felt Norwich did have control today. I thought their work in possession, by and large, was okay. Kind of certainly the defensive third into the middle third, I felt that was all pretty good, to be honest. And they conceded very little chances, very few chances because of individual errors, which again is pleasing. And I felt when I saw the team and Kenny McLean was in there and Marcelino Nunez was in there, it felt like it was kind of a team geared up for David Wagner, expecting to have a lot of the ball in this game, and they did. But that failure to convert that possession into anything really clear-cut or a consistent amount of clear-cut opportunities has cost them today, because they had enough of the ball to win this game. And if they'd have got a goal, they'd have moved a point outside the top six, and that does shift the narrative as well. But I think what we saw was a real lack of ideas, of spark, of creativity, of quality in the final third, and that's a real concern. I spoke about this, I think it might have been after Watford. If you turn the tap off, or try and turn the tap off at one end, that can often have a result, an effect at the other. And actually, this type of game isn't the one that I feel suits Norwich City, where they're doing the probing, they have to be the protagonist, they're trying to break down low blocks. From the evidence we've seen this season, that hasn't been the most effective way for them to win games. And I think actually, you look at their away record, they've been better when they've had to play in transition and counter teams and have space to run into and to counter attack. And there wasn't really any of those opportunities today. And what we saw, I think, pretty consistently throughout the game was a real struggle to break down a block in central areas. They worked the ball quite nicely to wide areas. They got a few opportunities to kind of cross from deep, and their best opportunities, really barring that Liam Gibbs chance, came from crossing positions. And that's because that was the space that Preston afforded them, but also it was where the ball was being worked into, and they didn't quite have the quality or the ingenuity or the combinations to penetrate them in more central areas. And that, for me, is what I'm stood here probably feeling a little bit frustrated about tonight. I didn't see enough patterns, and this is probably a coaching criticism really, but I didn't see enough kind of patterns from an attacking perspective to try and win the game, and a willingness, I guess, to move different parts around. There's one time they did it, and it was when Gabriel Sara fed the ball through to Kenny McLean fed the ball through to Gabriel Sara, and he found Liam Gibbs, who should have scored at this end, and made it 1-0. So there was that, and part of that is what Preston tried to do, but equally you have to have answers to that. And it felt Norwich didn't really, and they were very happy to cross the ball in, which you look statistically, crossing the ball in from wide, it's a very low percentage chance of converting that into really clear-cut opportunities, and that's probably documented by the chances they did have. The other really good chance, they probably had two in either half. I think the first half probably two probably weren't as good as the ones in the second. Onel Hernandez was set away by Dimi Yanulis. They had a 3-on-2 situation. He went alone. The shot was quite tame, and Freddie Woodman was able to save. Christian Fashnak had one that was kind of off the line, but a bit of an angle. It probably could have done better, should have done better maybe. And in the second half, really, for all of the huffing and puffing and possession and territory that they had, they mustered up the Liam Gibbs chance, where I think I'm not trying to defend him, because it's a really poor miss, and he knows that. He looked utterly crestfallen at the end. But I think there is a recovering defender that he just tries to bend the ball round, and he's just got that wrong and curled it far too wide, and it's a really, really poor miss. And then minutes later, Shane Duffy has a header, great contact on the ball, meets it really nicely, and it looked to me, I haven't seen it back, but it looked to me in real time, and from one replay that I've seen, that it comes off Alan Brown on the edge of the area, and that is a superb piece of defending, if that's the case, how he's managed to hook that away from the goal. But from there, it was dull for a lot of the game. It was static, I felt, when Norwich had the ball in deep areas, and really they looked a bit one-dimensional to me from attacking areas when they were trying to get the ball and force balls into the box. There was one chance from Marcelino Nunez, who broke the line to an excellent pass to Adam Eder on the edge of the box, but he just couldn't control it in that sense. And I didn't feel Norwich got too much creativity from the wide areas in Fashnak and Hernandez and Rowe when he came on, although he did have sort of one chance when Yanulis' deflected cross was cut back to him. Preston had chances of their own. They hit the bar. Maybe they had the best chance of the game by that Gibbs one. Brad Potts, I don't think he realised quite how much time he had. Ball comes over Kenny McLean's head after kind of an aerial duel with Kenny McLean. Both misread it. Potts profits. Had some time. This could have touched and finished, but didn't. Just lacked composure. It was a wild shot. Hit it over the bar. Then there was one man has cleared. It's for Ben Bateman. Goal is he just gets too much underneath the ball. It rises and hits the bar. And then one right at the left corner, their only corner of the afternoon. Jack Watmore looked like he kind of scuffed his shot, but was unable to make really solid contact. If he did make solid contact, I think he probably would have scored. So look, Preston a really poor run, as I said. I can totally understand why they're up the way they did. It's the first clean sheet in 3 months, and I think they'll be absolutely ecstatic with a point, given the kind of form that they've been on, and you see it in their approach. But the fact they could have won it, and I know Lowe's feels they should have won it towards the end, is perhaps telling. But I've seen a lot of debate on social media after that game about where this leaves Norwich City. As I said, I felt they needed to win the 2 home games. I actually think if they win on Wednesday, and you look at that as 7 points from 3, including the Bristol City one, not the worst return in the world to bounce into the East Anglian derby with. But by the same token, I think it's just really difficult to shift the feeling that this is a team on the pitch that is not really going anywhere. They just are mid-table, and they look mid-table at this moment in time, and it's difficult to know how they're going to find a spark to do that, and how they're going to change what they do and how they do it to be more effective, because I suspect Sheffield Wednesday under Danny Roll have improved dramatically, will come here and look to do a very similar thing, and may even have a bit more of a threat in transition, so that gives them a little bit more concern to think about. So frustration, I think, is probably the word, because it should have been a game that Norwich City won. I felt from a performance perspective it was better. I think David Wagner spoke about the counter pressing. It was much better today. They took much more care of the ball, but again, that was probably in kind of safe areas, as I would say. I thought Marcelino Nunez was very bright today, but it's just a flatness, isn't it? I think it's hard to shake that. It was very similar to QPR in a different sense in terms of entertainment value, but I think if QPR would have had their shooting boots on here, they probably would have took at least a point from that game. Today, this is frustrating because it kind of exposed maybe what Norwich don't have in the final third, and actually it was a difficult game because you play Adam Eder and Ashley Barnes. I don't think necessarily a game that's suited to Ashley Barnes, because you need technicians in there to try and break something down, to try and find space, to try and bind. They didn't have enough of that for long periods of the game, and that probably bleeds to the point about quality. And then it wasn't really a leaders type of game, because there weren't too many opportunities to stretch it and get in behind and run. And that's really what to do. He's quite a good transitional player, and there weren't many transitions for Norwich to be had against a Preston team that were pretty, which were cautious and played for a point. That's not a criticism, by the way. I totally understand why they did it, and they did it very effectively. And Ryan Lowe and Preston and their fans, I'm sure will be after what they've watched unfold in the last few weeks, will be really pleased. But from a Norwich perspective, there is still that feeling, isn't there? It's a really difficult feeling to shift, that this is kind of a season that is just kind of bypassing everybody and everything, and this is a game that kind of illustrates that. And I said for a few weeks, I think this is probably what Norwich City will be. They'll win, they'll lose, they'll draw one, and then maybe struggle for a little bit of consistency. But there were elements of that performance that I think David Wagner will be pleased with. I mentioned kind of the possession stuff. I mentioned certainly in again the 2/3 of the pitch, and I know people will point out the final third, and I think I've kind of spoken about the issues that they had in that area today. The counter-pressing was better. There was more control in this performance, but I think that control was largely down to what Preston did. And by the same token, if you have that control and have that possession, you have to have answers at the top end of the pitch to try and solve some of the problems that your opponents are giving to you, and they didn't. And it won't help, I think, anybody who feels that this is, again, as I said, just the season that's kind of bypassing them and drifting, I guess, that sense of drift that there's been for a little while. It doesn't shift that. And actually, it's Norwich have gained a point to the top six today, but again, it feels a little bit like asking someone to believe in a fairy at the moment for Norwich City to finish in the top six, because this is it. This is a game that exposes the quality or lack of that they have within that squad at the moment. Of course, they've got players to come back. They've got Josh Sargent, but again, he's going to have to feed off service. And at the moment, there's a chronic lack of service for what Norwich City are doing, particularly this afternoon. And beyond the chances that I mentioned, Freddie Woodman didn't really have a real save to make. And I can imagine Norwich are very frustrated, because and we say these things balance out. If they didn't deserve the win at Bristol City, maybe they did today. But it's a tough one, isn't it, to put into context and to really appreciate, because again, the performances here haven't been great for a significant portion of time, and QPR wasn't great, this wasn't great, and they're dull, aren't they? They're dull to watch at the moment, and getting that entertainment back, but also preserving kind of what they're trying to build from a defensive base, because you could argue they've got 2 clean sheets on the bounce, so you can always weigh these things up however you like. But I don't think any of it does much to shift the feeling that's around the place at the moment, and that is probably the one that's difficult. And I've said and I've felt for a little while that Wednesday's game might be a little bit of a banana skin, might be quite tricky, a lot trickier than people expect. And you have to say, if Norwich City don't win that one heading into the East Anglian derby, there's going to be real worry, I think, about if there isn't already, about that game next Saturday against Ipswich Town, who've been at Middlesbrough today and have won and are one of the 4 best teams in the division. So, that game is looming large. Still got one to get through at Carrow Road. There we go. I've done well, I think, to get 13 minutes out of that. So there we go. Thank you all very much for watching. Pinken.com, if you want to stomach any more of the analysis and reaction, we'll be there. We're going to record a podcast as well very shortly, so plenty more analysis and reactions to come. We've got a December deal for subscriptions if you are that way inclined as well. And it's been a really good take-up on those. So come and join us over there as well. From Carrow Road, at least I'm not as cold as I was against QPR. Thank you very much for watching. Finish goalless here.